state of Alabama is actually doing pretty well with this funding. Inflationary times oftentimes increase the state's revenue sources, which is taxation. The general fund, as of August, is up 12.96%. These are the sources of funding for the general fund. And if you will notice, there's a huge increase, like a 78% increase in gas and oil taxes. And there's also about a third of an increase in lodging taxes, which goes back to the fact that people are still traveling and going out. Right now, the general fund is anticipating a surplus of about $94 million. If you look at the Education Trust Fund, it has increased by 5.69%. These are its sources of funding. You'll notice that personal income tax and sales and use tax have been up. And it's anticipating a surplus of about $1.6 billion. So let's talk about RSA and where we are today. As of last week, we are managing about $41 billion in investments. 13.7 billion of that is ERSs, and 314 million of that is JRF. Of course, the Judges Fund is a smaller pool of people, so it's a smaller fund. Your investments are managed by an investment staff of 14. You have Mark Green, who is the Chief Investment Officer and Deputy Director for Investments, and he oversees the Director of Equities, Fixed Income, International Trade, and Private Placements. We also have a Chief Economist. We do all of our investing in-house, every single bit of it. You are our only client for the investment staff. You are their number one and only concern. 13 of our 14 staff members are what we call Chartered Financial Analyst. That is a very hard designation to attain. It takes taking 3 tests and many years of study. The one that is not a CFA is studying for it right now. Dr. Bronner has always taken the position that we want the best of the best, and you must be a CFA to work in the investment department. One thing that our investment staff does for us is it helps us avoid costly fees. We have some of the lowest investment expenses in the country. Last year, it cost us $15.2 million to invest. Had we outsourced that to brokers outside of RSA, it would have cost us $217 million. That is a huge savings. Many, many years ago, we were an outlier. A lot of pension funds thought we were crazy to do all of this in-house. They viewed it as a lot of work. And it's interesting that I went to a conference last week, and what I'm learning is that because of the fees, people are now switching over, and they're either doing investing in-house or some type of hybrid, and they always want to talk to us about how we avoid such high fees. And our answer is always, get good people, keep them, and do it in-house. This is our current asset allocation as of July. We still have about 50% in equities. We have about 9% in real estate. And you have our breakdown of international fixed income and cash. There are opportunities in the down market, okay? I want you to know that. It's not all doom and gloom. And our investment staff is making every effort to take advantage of those opportunities. As our Director of Equities last week advised at the Economic Outlook meeting, they said, look, relax, stay level-headed. We've been here before. We know what to do. We invest in the long term. And that's what we're doing. You need to hear me? Is that better? All right, sorry. One thing that I wanted to address here today is there's been a lot of media coverage on what is called environmental, social, and governance investing. I don't know if you've heard of that, but basically the concept is that you invest not based upon your market return, but more upon affecting social and political change. And RSA has been asked over and over if we do that, and the answer is no. Okay? And let me tell you why. We will only invest upon the best investment return, because this is your money, your retirement, and it is not our job to advance a social or political agenda with your money. It's our fiduciary duty to get the best possible investment return for you. Now, I want to be clear about this, though. It would be disingenuous of me to stand up here and say we never look at environmental, social, and governance factors, and we do to the extent that it affects the bottom line and value of the company we're investing in. So let me give you an example. Let's say that we invested in an oil and gas company, okay? And let's say that in our day-to-day research, our investment staff finds that, you know what, they're being investigated for not complying with environmental regulations, for risky behavior. Well, at that point, we will look at it and say, okay, that's going to affect the company's profitability and our value in the company. And at that point, we very well may change our holding in it or divest, but it will be because of the market return and not because of a social or political agenda. We don't have an ESG policy, and we do not do any ESG scoring. So I wanted to make that very clear today, because there's been lots of talk lately about this policy. I think it's the topic du jour. But again, we're a pension fund, we invest long-term, and we diversify. One of the ways we diversify is our investment in real estate. When Dr. Bronner first started investing in real estate, he took a lot of flack because he said, you know what, I'm going to invest in Alabama. He said, if we won't invest in Alabama, he will. And a stronger state is a stronger RSA. It's the old adage of a rising tide floats all boats. I will say that an RSA's investment in Alabama increases Alabama's tourism dollars. It also brings dollars from outside the state in, which is huge. It brings in tax revenue, and it creates jobs. It's a synergy that strengthens Alabama and in return RSA. So why is real estate a good investment? Well, diversification, low market volatility. It does not fluctuate every day like the market does. It has an asset value that if we needed to, we could put it on the market tomorrow and get cash if we ever needed it. We're not in that position, and I don't anticipate us ever having to be in that position, but it's good to have it in your portfolio. It has a stable cash flow with regards to rents or fees, and it hedges against inflation. In fact, I'll tell you, it's hedging right now. Interesting thing. So the Grand Hotel, I was looking at what we were charging for rooms the other day. And right now at the Grand Hotel, y'all, we can charge about $600 to $700 a night for rooms regularly, which is astounding to me, okay? Astounding, because about 10 years ago, we thought we were doing great if we got like $225. But we've got this pent-up demand for travel. And people are still, despite recession concerns, spending money on travel. So maybe our stocks aren't doing that great, but our hotels are doing wonderfully right now. So at least we're taking advantage of the market. A brief review of our real estate, which is again about 9% of our portfolio. In Alabama, we have 8 hotels, 11 golf courses, 11 office buildings. We have a facility, an industrial facility up in the Shoals. And we also have invested in 2 residential developments, which actually have been doing really, really well, although I'm going to tell you they're not immune, they're going to slow down soon. But those residential developments are in Point Clear to the Grand and up in Opelika. We also have one really big investment in New York City, which we kind of fell into with a bond default, but it's one of our most profitable investments, and that's 55 Water Street. It is a huge, huge office building in New York. It is an entire city block. It has its own zip code, and it is the largest office building by square footage in the city of New York, and it does very, very well. So let's talk rates of return. This is RSA's historical rate of return. And if you look, last year was unusually high, 22.18%, okay? And I will tell you that at our board meetings, every time Mark Grain, our CIO, stood up to address the board, he kept saying, do not expect this next year. He said, said, we've never seen rates of return like this. This is highly unusual. And, you know, he was right, because unfortunately when something goes up that high, it's got to come down a little bit, which is what the market's doing right now. But we invest in the long term, and this chart shows our success, because historically our expected rate of return has been 8%. Due to actuarial considerations, it's been lowered to 7.45. But you will see that we've pretty much every single year made that 8 or 7.5% throughout there. The only places that you'll see where we were slightly short would be the 15-year and 20-year. But what those factor in is, you got to remember, we had the 2008-09 recession, which hit everybody very hard, and the dot-com bubble. But if you look at it going to a 35-year, we're at 8.49. If you look at it going to 10-year, we're at 10%. So we're making a good return doing what we do, and we can survive these tough times. I'd be remiss if I didn't stand up here and say how wonderful it is to have a pension. Okay? A pension is a guaranteed monthly payment for the lifetime of the member, regardless of market volatility. A 401k is subject to market volatility. The income ebbs and flows every month for a person that relies solely on a 401k. And unfortunately, many of those people that are relying on 401ks right now, they're either deciding not to retire because they can't afford to. If they're already retired, they are cutting back on their spending and maybe even considering returning to work. And with a pension, you're more insulated from the market downturns. I know things that cost more, but nevertheless your income is staying the same and will not change. It gives you stability.